Okay, welcome everyone. Hello, hello. So, I have to say, I'm a little bit nervous because this is my first live on two platforms at the same time, but should be okay, guys. Yeah. Any questions, let me know. If you're watching replay, I'm also gonna reply to your questions. So this time I'm gonna actually share this in a full screen mode. Only have a few slideshow for you, which is actually cool. Uh, and I hope it's only going to be 1 hour. So I have to actually do it in 1 hour because we do not have more time to do that. So let's start very, very quickly. Just let me actually have a sip of tea. So again, welcome everyone. I'm going to go full screen. And as I told you, I only got like maybe, let's say about 8 or 9 slides. We're not going to talk too much because I just want to show you this really interesting subject, in my opinion. We'll go full screen right now. How to do it, I forgot. Okay. Okay, how to start with Jira Scrum Fast. Really interesting subject. And I would say I've got an interesting conversation with somebody. A lot of people saying, yeah, Jira is very complex. It's even killing productivity. I don't believe this personally. I work with Jira for the last 10 years. It's just a tool, to be honest. Really, it is only a tool. And however you're going to use this tool, that's how it is going to work. So the main subject for me today is just to show you how you can start. I'm not going to go into super details how to do it, but I'm going to show you everything based in the cloud version. And if you do not know, you can have your very own cloud version, which is free. Believe it or not, it is free. Yes, there is a catch. I'm just going to explain it very quickly. So I have to be careful with the time because, as you probably know me from other videos and from other tutorials, I can talk about this subject probably for hours, which I don't want to do it because I don't want to hear my voice for that long. So how to start with Jira Scrum Fast. First of all, we need to have your very own hosting. But before we're going to do it, I'm going to show you something. So, what Jira is, if you watch this training, you never actually worked with Jira before. Historically, it is uh, let's say backtracking software, but at the moment, it's absolutely not. It is agile project management tool. Really powerful. Let's start from that very basic concept because before we move into the Scrum, Kanban, we can actually cover only Scrum, but it doesn't really matter. Let's talk about this hierarchy because it's very important. Always on top of it, yeah, we've got our Jira instance, and whatever it is, doesn't really matter if it's a cloud version, if it's a server version. The hierarchy is always the same. So please remember, projects always are at the same level. There's no such thing in Jira if we're talking about the hierarchy of the project. They're on the same level. However, just a little bit extra complicate. We've got something like components, but we're not going to cover them. So let's be very clear with this. Technically, Jira only got this one level if we're talking about the projects. And underneath what we've got, of course, issues, tasks, subtasks, whatever. We're going to talk about this in a second. But projects, it's like basically the draw, and the files are stored in that in that in that structure. Yes, so we've got, of course, issues. Yes, as we call it. However, I sometimes refer it to the tickets. Yes, like tasks, but issues, tickets are mainly the same. So please remember, if we think about the issues again, we're just gonna cover that hierarchy. But in Jira, we've got 2+3rd if we're using Agile, which is, of course, epics. A little bit extra information if we use versions. Yeah. So as I told you, issues. And don't worry, I only got few slideshows for you today. Yeah. Issues, it is basically the type. It could be very different between stories, between bugs, between, for instance, like this example on the right hand side, test or whatever. This is actually the second structure, as we call it, tickets. And of course, we've got workflow. However, I am not going to cover. Actually, this is a very example of the workflow. I'm not going to cover actually in this tutorial how to go so deep into workflow because we're going to cover basic stuff, which we're only going to focus on the simplified workflow and explain, why. All right, it's cool. And of course, if we're using agile project management, the structure is, of course, let's say, a little different, but is still referring to this main principle, so that project is always on the top. However, if we're using Scrum or Kanban, that the epic is going to be on the top, and we can achieve somehow just like an artificial, let's say, third level. But again, as you can very clearly see, we've got epics. An epic can be linked to a story, which is smallest body of work, and the story can be linked to the subtask, and that is really it. We're gonna keep that as it is. Story versus epic. If you're using agile project management tool, obviously story is the smallest body of work. Epic, we can say it is a large user story. Yeah. And we're gonna stop probably over here because I don't want to go deeper. What's the differences in very simple words between Scrum and Kanban? So in a simple word, as you can see on the right hand side, it should be the opposite, but doesn't really matter. Scrum refers, well, we use Scrum mainly, of course, mainly is like kind of design even for software development, but not only, of course. And the main principle of Scrum is deliver project in small chunks, as we're saying. So we've got sprints, and the sprints depends, like I think most common is 2 weeks, but it doesn't mean like you have to use 2 weeks. You have to maybe in some teams you could work 1 week sprint, some teams you could work 4. And Kanban, generally speaking, works very, very well in support. What does it mean? Because obviously in Kanban, our main priority is quantity of issues moved from the left to the right-hand side. And yes, in Jira, they're a little bit similar, we can say. However, that's the big difference that obviously Kanban does not have a work with sprints. Yeah, so there's no deadline. So like that's in a simple words. Okay, so I'm not really going to super details about the Scrum methodology. If you want to know more, you need to go into Scrum.org. But I can promise you this is going to be my absolutely last slide if we're talking about dev by PowerPoint, because I want to show you the demo how to do it, how to actually start with that Scrum very, very, very quickly. But just to show you, if we're talking about the hierarchy in Agile project management, we've got epics, we've got actually story can be linked to a task, subtask, and subtask, what is really important to understand in Jira, can be linked to any issue type. Yeah, so it could be linked to task, could be linked to bug, could be linked to any issue type what we even created. Yes, and just to confuse this little bit extra, as I told you, you can clearly see those two levels. However, because epic is still an issue type, it can also has subtasks. Okay, so now let's actually go into our demo. But before we're going to do it, I would like to tell you one thing. I'll be using a cloud version. And if you never used this before, and if you've got access to Jira, I don't know, in your organization, but I'll still highly encourage you to get your very own version. Why? Because obviously when you start creating something, that is going to be questioned. Do you have permissions to create, let's say, projects? Because only system administrator can create projects in Jira. And secondly, we don't want any trouble. We don't want to destroy anything. That's why please make sure you have access to your very own version. How to do it? It's a very simple process. Please navigate to atlassian.com. And what to do next? Just try it now. Yeah, try it now. We go for Jira Software, Jira Cloud. And in my case, I actually used all of them. So all three. What's the catch? So you can say, like, what is really the catch? Because truly, why something such an amazing product is free? Yes, there is a catch. I'm not going to go into very details, but the main issue, I think you've got somewhere like, I am not sure where the differences are, but I can explain. So the difference is let's say, significant. So first of all, the free version is only for 10 users. And the second most significant difference is that the free version does not have, as they call it, advanced permission. What does it mean? You won't be able to create a private project. So there is the permission basically function is completely disabled. But believe me, it is still going to be absolutely fine, especially for testing, especially for to have some fun with Jira. You don't really need that. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to check if we've got any questions. We do not have any questions, so let's quickly move on to the next chapter of our presentation. And we can actually, I'm going to show you how to create that project super quick. So I am in my Jira. So of course you need to sign it up, and your Jira maybe is going to look a little bit different to mine. Still going to be absolutely fine because obviously I've got some demo tickets, and I will show you how to create how to create a project with demo tickets. Yeah, because it is, believe it or not, a little bit hidden functionality. So I'm not going to do it again, or maybe yeah, okay, why not? Well, I'm going to actually do it because I've already got something like 5 or 6 projects. So anyway, if you are the system administrator, yeah, because as I told you, only system administrator can create projects. You're going to navigate to the top section, and by the way, the menu is always going to stay on the top, yeah. And we're going to navigate to projects, create project, and from here you can select whatever template you want. So I'm not going into details about those, but we're gonna actually talk about Scrum. Okay, so as you can see, there is no way to create a sample issues from here. So that's why it's, in my opinion, that's not really the best, but whatever, we're going to use this template. Yeah, cool. And now there's another question, which is asking us what type of the project we're going to use. So obviously, I am not going to cover the team manage. We're only going to focus on the classic one, company manage. Just going to give you just a very quick overview. So historically, this was called next gen, and yes, it is very good. I think the Atlassian is going into very good direction with this template. Yeah. Why? Because it's much more simplified compared to the classic one. You can still use some advanced functionality, but as you can see, anyone can in the team. There is basically, as I said, the main priority of this template is simplicity. So it's like settings do not impact other project, easy setup, access level permission. There's still a little bit permission, but much more simplified. But yes, we're gonna go for our classic one. Select company managed, and we're gonna put a name. So we have to put some kind of decent name. I always recommend to have a decent name. So I'm gonna call it my demo Scrum presentation. And what is a little bit, it's the spelling is all right. What is a little bit annoying, we need to create in a minute another project. Yeah. So we go and create a project. There you go. And of course, it is completely empty. So how to generate a few sample tickets? You can do it. We can follow it, but we can maybe stick to this one. However, if you really want to do it, you need to navigate to the board, that section on the left-hand side. Yeah, we go to the left-hand side, and you go and create new board. And there you go. From this section, you will be able to create a Scrum board. Yep. And we got to go for it. 2. Why not? Because already it's there. SSP. I don't know what number is. Actually, you can use numbers right now. Create board. Thinking. And what's going to happen now? It will create a separate project. So yeah, I just don't get it, but okay. And this is the way how you can create a sample demo project with, well, the demo project, let's say, with with few demo tickets. Cool. Okay, we have it right now, which is very, very, very good. But don't go anywhere because we're gonna keep carry on, and I'm gonna, of course, show you how to create a few additional tickets. Why I'm always actually prefer to work with sample data, because when you start, especially from absolutely scratch, and there is no tickets, like people keep asking like what to do really next. So don't worry, we're gonna cover, of course, this as well. So if you follow my instructions, absolutely fine. So now let's focus and create a few additional tickets. But before we're going to do it, I'm going to a little bit explain you about this menu on the left-hand side. So always the section on the left-hand side belongs to the project, yeah? And the top one, the top menu, it is the global menu, which belongs, of course, to the whole instance of Jira. And we're going to navigate between those actually two sections. So we're not going to cover it almost, but backlog, every single time when you hit that create button, because this is actually create button, new ticket's going to land in this section. So you already got seriously sprint. So what I'm going to do, I am just thinking maybe I'm going to delete that sprint. Yeah, why not? We're going to delete that sprint. So let's start let's basically like do it from scratch. So let's create a few additional tickets. Of course, you can do it in a few different ways. The top one is going to be absolutely fine. We're going to hit the create button. And now make sure you are in the right project. That's why I'm highly encourage you to do it on a test instance, especially if you're not very familiar with Jira. So make sure the project is correct. Next one, issue type. So now it depends, of course. The default scheme is very agile friendly, which we're probably going to use most of the time, stories. Yeah, and let's actually put something into the summary. So we're going to call it demo like one. Why not? If you want to put something in the description, absolutely yes. And we're going to hit create. There you go. So now Jira automatically is going to add new tickets into the backlog. So this is actually like I would call it like a classic way how to create the ticket. However, there is maybe something what I missed. If we go to the custom fields, that the section is set to my like as I call it, my favorite field. So maybe your screen is going to look like this, which is still absolutely fine because you can limit amount of fields from this screen. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's move on. So please, it will be really good practice if you create a few more tickets. However, I'm going to show you one more method, like a little bit, let's say, faster, how to create more tasks, issues, or whatever you want. How to do it? You're going to cancel this and navigate to the just like the underneath of the backlog section. Yeah. So we're going to create with that little plus. So you hit that plus, and from here again you can decide whatever issue type. And again, I'm going to go for maybe task, and I will create few tasks from here. So I'm going to go task 1, task 2, and task 3. The 3 tasks. Please, if you can repeat that with me. By the way, yes, what about details? So how I recommend this method, because very often you don't really need that information. Is like, I don't know, maybe about some extra bits, even with more details. So I personally use them when there is a meeting. So very quickly, very briefly, just putting something into summary, and later I can always review it. So if you click the task, of course that mini editor is going to open, and on the right hand side you can fill them up. Here you can actually put a little bit more description, like put labels, add description if you want. Some you can actually add over here, like here, demo text, and save it. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. So I believe if we've got enough tickets in our backlog, it's a very good practice to put priority always on the top. It's not always, just like preferred action. Yeah. So I'm going to put what is going to be my most important in regards my priority tickets into the top of the backlog. And when I'm ready, I will create a sprint. And as I told you, the strength is not about agile. So I'm not talking about the Scrum planning and stuff like this. And even if you want to put story points. Of course, there is over here, but I am not going to talk about this right now because this training is all about the Jira. And when I'm ready, I will create sprint. There we go. And another quick thing, if you are creating sprints, don't stop on one. Yeah, you can create many. Of course, don't go too crazy and go like 50, 60. But in my opinion, up to 5, 6 depends, of course. What is the arrangement between product owner and Scrum Master and the team and the Scrum team. I think adding up to 3-4 sprints is going to work absolutely fine. Why? Because of course planning sprint at the first time is going to be a little bit difficult. You need to know the team velocity, stuff like this. However, the second sprint, third sprint is going to be much easier. So I know at the moment, my actually priority. That's why I put them the issues on top of it. Is going to land into my first sprint, and this is a very simple process. You're going to use drag and drop formula feature like this, and I know also the task number 2 is going to land into the second. So look at this, how quickly I can plan a sprint. Obviously, in a that's just from the Jira perspective. I'm not talking about agile bits. But I'm going to show you something else because sometimes, my backlog is very short. It's very short. I've got only 10 issues. And sometimes, I've seen backlogs with like hundreds of issues. So if you want to move more than one, obviously the shift is going to work. So you're going to hold the shift. So select the first one, hold the shift with my third. And if you think like me, Chrome, the right click is going to work absolutely fine. And you can move them to the specified sprint. In this case, maybe number 2. Why? Because I deleted number 1. Yeah, there you go, like this. Cool. Okay, so now let's start our sprint. Something interesting going to happen, of course. We're going to start our sprint, and it is going to be information that does not have a value estimate fields. Of course, thank you very much. But some of actually even my students just like stop over here saying, "Oh, there is an error." No, please just read carefully. This is just a warning, okay? And if you want to carry on, absolutely yes. It's 16th, obviously, and as I told you before, most common duration I would go for 2 weeks, but it is just my choice. If you're planning to have maybe 6 weeks, go for custom. Put the 6 weeks. If you want to go for 1 week, why not? I'll go for most common in my case, which is 2 weeks. Yeah. And my another tip for you: always put sprint goal. Yeah. I'm going to do it, by the way, and hit the start. So what's going to happen now? Jira automatically moves us to the second option, which is active sprint. Yeah, however, we can always go back, and this is what I want to do: go back to backlog, because something interesting happens. Yeah? We've got our sprint, and the sprint is active. So why the start sprint is grayed out? And the answer is very, very, very simple, because by default, when you create a new project, this is actually global settings, by the way, Jira only allows you to have one active sprint at the same time. Yeah. What does it mean? Of course, we can have only one sprint. So to create a new sprint, or just to start, because we can actually create, we have to finish our previous sprint. So the question is, can we change it? And the answer to that is absolutely yes, but I am not going to show you how to do it. It's a very simple process. You need to go to the settings, find the sprint options, and make sure that the parallel mode is set to on. However, I am absolutely not recommending that settings, because I don't know. I've never actually seen that stuff worked. Cool. So let's actually focus right now on the active sprint. So what's happened? The issues been moved from the backlog, which is still over there, to this section, which is, of course, our sprint board. And we're going to spend little time on the sprint board. Just want to reconfigure the workflow and just explain a little bit about the workflow. What workflow is? Workflow describes the life cycle of the issue. And by default, workflows are set to simplified, which I am actually personally very, very big fan of simplified workflow. not like some of Scrum Masters. Yeah. So what does it mean? Is simplified. It means, I'm just going to show you in a second, but it means you can take the issue or the ticket, yeah, and move them to any column. Yeah. So you're going to be drag and dropping them. And yes, that is the whole idea. So nothing is going to stop you, for instance, to take them from to do back in done. And someone can say, oh, but by the way, that's not how it's supposed to work. Maybe yes, maybe not. It is actually a very easy way to change it, by the way. But that is the whole idea of the simplified workflow, because believe me, to add workflow is not that complicated, but you need to have a permission to do that. You need to be project administrator, and on top of it, the workflow needs to be separate. So if you like sharing workload with multiple projects, which in Jira is of course possible, without the system administrator permission, you won't be able to do it. And on top of it, managing workflow from this actually section is very, very simple. And this is what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a real life example how we can do it. We go navigate to the mid-board, as we call it, board settings, and we stop for a second in the columns. There you go. And from here, we're going to start configuring. So as I told you before, make sure it is in a simplify mode. Of course, you need to be in simplify mode. Otherwise, you won't be able to add statuses. Columns, absolutely, yes. So let's add a few statuses. What are we going to do? We're going to add blocked. There we go. And something interesting happened. Yeah. So we added status, but we forgot about the column. So let's do it again. So I'm going to delete that. Add the column. Blocked. So I made a mistake. Yes. So when you've got simplify workflow like me, and you've got capacity to add columns, Jira automatically is going to add a status. However, because I've been rehearsing this before, didn't actually ask me. What about the colors? Like let's. I'm going to show you something else. Yeah, I'm going to add. Let's go for add columns, and I'm going to add in the review UAT, because name doesn't really matter. But why? Because in review I've already got the status, so that's why it is not going to ask me for a creation of the new status. So that's why I would like to put something new. So name doesn't really matter, as I told you. Category. What is this? What's that about? So just to let you know that category, it is important, but it is only like a tag. So it doesn't really matter too much. It's more for us. For Jira, it doesn't really matter. However, I really like that, like someone been doing this watch YouTube tutorial, that the status should be like referring to the binary status. So if we've got a progress, of course it is blue. If it's no progress, 0, you should be in to do or done. And in Jira and Cloud Opinion Server, you cannot change it. So it's just a tag. Yeah. So in review, so what does it mean? It is at the moment progress, or there is actually, I would say, no progress. That's why I'll go for to do, the gray one. Cool. And I also believe my status should be over here. So very simple process. You're going to drag and drop them. Cool. Let's go back to the board. Let's see how it works. It looks really, really good. Okay, so we can start moving them. However, if you've got the issue like me, you cannot move the ticket to the new column. There is little bug. I don't know if it's like bug or it's not bug. Please refresh it. Refresh the screen. Yeah. And now you will be able to do it. Cool. Okay, let's have a little bit more fun with the workflow. And I'm going to add extra status to the same column. Okay, so like again, I'm going to go to the meatballs, board settings, columns, and we're going to focus a little bit on block, because as I told you, it's a real life example. So I don't really care that much about the blocked, because blocked is a little bit too broad for me. So I would like to add new status. So I'm not going to add any more columns. So I'm going to go waiting for support. Yeah, I've been actually doing this before. And I'm going to add another one, waiting for a client. Yeah? Because that's how most of the time issues are blocking us. And I'm going to put them into blocked column. Cool. Blocked is assigned because there's no any issues. Let's go back. So what's happened with our 2 columns? Believe it or not, they're still there. So because of that little bug, we have to refresh it. And look at this now. When you move the issue to the blocked column, the column is going to basically split on 2 sides. Yeah. And if I want to put this one's going to be waiting for support. Yes. And this one's going to be waiting for a client. Absolutely. Yes. So how to distinct the difference? Because obviously this is not going to be like very maybe clearly read, but you can always just click on the issue. Click on the issue and you're going to see them over here. Yeah, waiting for a client and waiting for support. Great. So look at this, how quickly you can build even more sophisticated workflow, just use the board configuration. So in my opinion, I really love this functionality. I really, really like it because you can just save time. And do you really need non-simplified workflow? If yes, it still will be a quick process, but not as quick as this one. Cool. So now let's talk about the finishing sprint. So we're going to finish sprint. We've got a few maybe, just two. I'm just looking at my notes, 2 more chapters. So we go very quickly. Okay. So we work on the issue, remove them. And now let's talk about the finishing sprint. So how to complete sprint is a very simple process. However, what is going to happen probably most of the time, you won't be able to complete sprint because of the issues. Yes, and we've got these 2 scenarios. So the scenario A, which is like most common, we still have unresolved issues. So from Agile perspective, of course, we cannot finish sprint if the issues are not completed. But Jira, of course, can handle this very, very well. So scenario A, when we've got, let's see, like this. Yeah, we've got 2 issues in Jira not resolved. What's going to happen? Of course, Jira is going to handle this on our own. So what are you going to do? We've got 4 issues completed, well done, but 2 issues are incomplete. What do you want to do? Obviously, you can move them to the next sprint, or if you want to just move them to the backlog, absolutely yes. Or even from here, you will be able to create a new sprint. So in my case, I will probably like probably most of Scrum Masters, they're going to move them into sprint 3. But it's your decision, absolutely. If you want to move them to backlog, no problem whatsoever. So I am going to do it in a second because I want to talk to you about the scenario number 2 or scenario B, when of course every issue is completed. Yeah, and we still have, I don't know, let's say we still have maybe not 9 days, but we've got like 5 days. So I can tell you, of course, that depends about the Scrum Master, because you can complete the sprint. Of course, there will be no problem. But regarding Agile methodology, Scrum Master should talk to the product owner, say that still, for instance, we still got 3 days, sprint is not completed, we've got capacity, and product owners should actually say, okay, so let's sit down, go to the backlog, and let's add more tickets to the active sprint. Is it possible in Jira? Absolutely, yes. And I really want to show you that because Jira is going to allow you to do that. However, it's going to be that little message, like saying, okay, what is happening? And it is, again, it's not the error. It's not an error. It's just a warning. So can you add it? Absolutely, yes. No problem. Cool. Okay. So now I can go back to my active sprints. And as you can see, I've got a few issues which I can start working on them. And I'm going to finish the sprint just to show you complete. Something interesting going to happen. Of course, doesn't make sense. Please do not look at my sprint report. But normally it should obviously follow that guideline, because I've just done this over here. And yes, from here, if you like, my Jira is connected to Confluence, you will be able from here to create retrospective and link them directly to the Confluence. All right, so I'm gonna see if we've got some questions. Looks like we do not have any questions. So now I'm going to show you something extra because I don't want to really shovel too much information. We didn't talk about the components, but what is very important to talk about is the reports. So normally at the moment, I will spend some time to create some of the reports. And yes, if we're talking about the reports, the built-in reports are, let's say, they're okay, but be honest with you, I do not use them too much. Why? Because I prefer my own approach and create basically filters. Yeah. So we navigate to the issue, view filters, go to the advanced. I don't know why it's actually switching to advanced. And I will be creating the filters from this section. And why filters? Because especially if you're Scrum Master, especially if you're business analyst, you probably spend with filters and most of the time. And they're, in my opinion, it is the most powerful, maybe second most powerful feature in Jira. And I always advise to start from the basic. So you're going to go select the project, select the type, issues. And when they're going to create them, when you created issues, I'm going to decide between this view and this view, save them, always save them. But if I can give you my one tip, move as quick as you can into the JQL. Why? Because this is the most powerful feature in Jira. And what is going to happen when you've got a report, like for instance, you want to know how many tickets been created today, how many tickets been resolved today, yeah, or how many tickets has no response for, let's say, 5 days. You can do it over here. So I'm going to give you a very quick example how to do it. Yeah, so like we go for the project SSP2 and create date. Doesn't really make sense. Is equal or more minus 4, I would say 4 hours, so like 4 days, yeah, for instance. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense because I've just created this. And on top of it, we go for order, right? Create date ASC. And look how quickly you can build, or DSC maybe, or DSC. Yeah. And how quickly you can build a report, because Jira is actually going to help you to do that. Yeah. And when the filter is created, always save, because you can do some another very, very cool things with this. For instance, build a dashboard. Yeah. So we're not going to go into details about this, but I just want to show you this simple thing and how to really start working with Scrum Project, believe me or not. But like one of the success stories from previous clients, like for instance, I've been working with a client and Chris been able to configure his Scrum project in less than 3 days. Obviously, with the project filters, it's going to take a little bit more, but I've got something for you. Let me know in the comments. I'm going to send you that example. I can send you just like a few as the teaser for my program. I'm going to show you how to build that filters much quicker. Yeah, because look, I just showed you only few features, and got like less than 1 hour, 40 minutes. Yeah, we've been able to create a project, configure it, and even talk a little bit about the filter. So that's why I would like to tell you something. This weekend, I am doing, again, workshops when we're going to go into more details. But this is going to be workshops. So I'm looking for small group of people who wants to work with me, but as the interactive. So how it's going to look like. I will be working with you together. And I'm going to give you access to my templates. Even if you don't have access to Jira, yes, I have another paid instance. When we're going to talk about more complex stuff, how to configure this project from A to Z. And believe it or not, 4 hours is going to be absolutely enough to do it. So if you want to more know, I'm going to put this into the details. I'm going to paste that link. Please, it's only £97, and you can also receive recordings of that. So don't wait. If you want to know more, I'm going to paste the details, and we'll see you on Saturday. So, okay, that is going to be it for this live. Thank you so much. And if you have any comments, if you've got any questions, of course, let me know. Thanks a lot, and bye-bye.